Health Secretary Matt Hancock has said people should have phone or video consultations with their doctors unless there is a clinical reason not to.
A study by the Royal College of GPs has revealed that now just 14% of GP appointments are actually face-to-face, 61% are held over the phone, 6% are via text message or email, and 4% are done through video calling, with 70% of GPs saying that the new way of working has increased efficiency.
Yeah, so should all GP appointments now be done remotely? Joining us now is Dr. Ellie Cannon from North London, who says she has found it transformative for her surgery. Fitness expert and model Diana Moran, who says this is an example of elderly people being forgotten again. And Dr. Sarah Jarvis, of course, who's still with us. Let's come to you first, Ellie Cannon. Dr. Ellie Cannon, do you think this is the way forward? I mean, does it make perfect sense, particularly today when we're hearing that more lockdown measures are in place in parts of the country? So, you know, it's a sign of things to come that people may well be, may well continue to be more restricted in where they can and can't go. Does this solve a lot of problems for you?
It really does, and this is the general practice that I've been doing for the last 4 months throughout lockdown. And we must get away from this idea that thinking this is bad for elderly people. First of all, a lot of elderly people are online and are digitalised, and I have a lot of patients in their 70s and 80s who are using this type of tech. And the other thing is the idea of having digital and phone appointments is that they can be used by people who can use them. And then we have the space and the phone lines to help the other people. So what I've found is a lot of more transactional discussions can just be done on email or on text message, which actually gives me the time that I need to visit or to phone my elderly or more vulnerable patients.
When you say transactional details, what do you mean by that then? So what kind of things could we expect via email or text?
Well, a lot of people don't want to see their GP. They're working, they want a repeat prescription, they need a letter, they want to chat, they don't want to see you, they can't leave work, they can't leave their kids, they can't get there. So there's a lot of transactional things. I think I've got this problem, I would like to try this. I think I've got that, I need this. So there's quite a few like that. So it's not actually always the GP who is saying we don't want to see you. A lot of the time it's often the patient.
Diana Moran, do you buy this? You know, Ellie's saying there that actually there are a lot of older people, because it's Age UK and others have raised concerns about this idea from Matt Hancock about being more remote in future. How do you feel about it? Are you confident going online and speaking to your doctor, or do you need that face-to-face company, if you like, of being, being reassured?
To be honest, yes, I think so. Excuse me. I do appreciate that for younger people and for the doctors that it makes sense. It saves a lot of time, a lot of waiting in the doctor's surgery. But I have to say that I represent the older people, and there are nearly 12 million of us over 75, 5.4 million over 75 actually, 1.6 of them over 85. I'm 81. Now, a lot of people that I know of my age are not confident with the technology and really do feel that they need to see a doctor. And I would have thought that for frail and inarticulate older people, it's necessary that they do see a doctor. They are face-to-face with a doctor, because very often it's the body language of a patient that is going to give away some of the problems that they've really got, and which older people tend to try and shush up and not come forth with. And I think really a doctor watching an older person, well, possibly some of the younger ones as well, it's that last lot of things that the patient says to the doctor that really hit the nail on the head, and that's where the problems are.
Dr. Sarah Jarvis, there's something to be said about that, isn't there, for an elderly patient, or any patient, really, the idea of being able to see the doctor face-to-face, have eye-to-eye contact, to really get some real human comfort, which perhaps you can't get over the phone, you can't get over an email or a text message.
You can't necessarily, but of course there are lots of situations. One of the reasons that these private GPs have sprung up and have been so successful in many respects is because people who have individual problems, who have a medical problem or want a repeat prescription or want an issue sorted out, and it's one issue, find it much more convenient to have a video consultation or even have a phone consultation. But I absolutely agree with Diana that there are many people who have multiple medical problems. Ellie has made the point that we shouldn't be making these the default for everybody. What we should be doing is checking up, having maybe a phone consultation to begin with, or having what's called a digital front door where people can submit a form. But we work with a system, for instance, in East London, where there's a high proportion of people who don't speak English. It's not just older people, don't have the technology, a lot of people who don't have English as a first language, people who have hearing difficulties, people who have mental health problems. And what we can do is to say, OK, if you're not in one of those categories, then you submit a form which tells us about your medical problems. You can fill it out at your own convenience. You won't forget something. You won't feel pressured for time. You can send it to us. The GP or the practice nurse can review that and can decide what needs doing. And that will free up time. But what we must not do is to say, right, that's it, blanket. If you can't get on the phone, you can't see the doctor.
And the problem I have with it is that, what about privacy? You know, you're in your home. There may be things you don't want to share with people in your household. You don't want to get them worried. And how do you explain then to that partner or, you know, we're talking, you know, domestic abuse has risen during lockdown too. There are situations in which the doctor is your safety net for a whole host of things going on in your life.
Yes.
And then if your partner or whoever says, why do you need to go in? Just do it over Zoom. And then you're sort of, I can imagine somebody being stuck in that situation, trying to wriggle out of this situation. Oh, you just want a repeat prescription, don't you? When actually that might have been the way to get to see somebody in private, in confidence, to speak about other things that are happening in your life.
Yeah, but as a GP, I can tell you that they are a tiny minority. And what we must do is to make clear to receptionists, to practices will know this already, but receptionists need to understand that there have to be situations in which people can be given permission to go in. Now, what we need people to recognise is that there are always going to be circumstances where you need to be examined. An awful lot of what I can diagnose about somebody comes from what they tell me.
Right.
But there are going to be circumstances where I'm going to need to examine them. If somebody rings up and you are concerned about them as a GP and you think there's something more going on here, whether you think there's a mental health problem, whether you think there might be domestic abuse, whatever it might be, it's very easy to say, that needs examining. I'm going to advise you to come into the surgery. And that has to remain as an option.
And I suppose what lots of people, Ellie, you know, my mum included, other, you know, elderly people actually, and Diana too, actually feel the opposite, that they feel worried about sitting in a waiting room with lots of other people who might be carrying, my mum doesn't really want to go into the surgery, actually. And so if I could set it up for her, although English isn't her first language, it would be complicated. I think, would you be happy, Ellie, for, you know, in those circumstances, for another person to be there in that situation and to translate and all that? Because there's a lot of, you know, issues, isn't there, about privacy and medical records, Ellie, that you have to be very delicate around when you're talking to somebody from their home.
Well, this is exactly what's happening already. I mean, this is how I've been working for the last 4 months, and this is exactly what we're finding. So whether it's with elderly people or with, I have a huge number of patients where English is not their first language, they often have somebody caring for them or somebody with them who, at the time of their convenience, so not 8 a.m. when the GP phone line's open, but at any time of their convenience, they can help them request that online GP consultation, and they can help them do that. And the other thing which we have to really help people understand, particularly for the more vulnerable patients, at the moment for more vulnerable patients, whether elderly or frail or those with any sort of disability, it is impossible, as you'll know because you've covered it, to get into a GP surgery because of long waiting times, queues outside the door, the rammed phone lines at 8 a.m. That's not easy for elderly people. Now, there are so many people who are making their appointment online that the phone lines are far less rammed. So we're actually making it easier for those situations that Diana has quite rightly described, elderly people who want to go in, who want to get through. Those people are now getting through on the phone, and they are able to be seen a lot quicker because so many other people are being triaged into another way.
OK, well, listen, we'll leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us, Dr Ellie Cannon, Diana Moran, and, of course, Dr Sarah Jarvis is still with us. But thank you very much.